The air inside the private suite of a luxury hotel in New York smelled faintly of expensive cologne and fresh ink on confidential documents. Under the glimmering chandelier sat two men who could not have looked more different. Donald J. Trump, once the world's loudest president, now a self-styled kingmaker, and Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young military leader who had just stunned the world by taking the helm of Burkina Faso. They weren't supposed to meet like this, but power had a way of bending protocol. Trump leaned back, a smug grin curling under his trademark red tie. He tapped the table where a stack of contracts waited, next to 2 glasses of untouched whiskey. "Listen, Ibrahim, you're a smart kid, but you need America behind you. You want security? Investments? I can arrange it all. All you have to do is sign here. Let our companies handle your gold, and I'll make sure you stay in that fancy palace for as long as you breathe." Traoré studied Trump's face. It was a face he had seen 1,000 times on TV screens as a student. The bravado, the bragging, the threats hidden under flattery. "No more speeches, Mr. Trump," Traoré said evenly. "You want our mines, our oil, our loyalty. But what does my country get in return? More debt? More foreign soldiers on our land?" Trump's grin hardened. He leaned forward, voice dropping to a hiss. "Son, don't test me. If you turn down this deal, I promise you, you won't last a year. We'll find someone who wants the dollars more than you want your pride." Silence wrapped the room for a long moment. Traoré picked up the glass of whiskey, sniffed it, then set it down untouched. "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Trump," he said, standing up. "Enjoy your drink. And keep your money." As Trump opened his mouth to bark something back, Traoré calmly lifted a tiny voice recorder from his pocket, the red light blinking. He nodded once, pocketed it, and walked out. He had come to New York for a deal. He was leaving with evidence and a plan to show the world what betrayal really looked like. Ibrahim Traoré's plane lifted off from JFK International Airport at midnight. By the time it crossed the Atlantic, the secret recording of his meeting with Trump was already on a secure server, waiting for the right moment to detonate like a bomb. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré didn't sleep. He gathered his tight circle of loyal officers and civilian advisors in a cramped, dimly lit room inside the presidential residence. On the table before them, a laptop, the recording, and a draft of the speech that would soon break the internet. One aide, a wiry young journalist named Amadou, hesitated. "Mr. President, if you release this, America will retaliate. They'll freeze our accounts, maybe worse." Traoré's eyes were locked on the screen, on the smirk of Trump bragging about puppeteering African leaders. His jaw tightened. "We are already at risk every day," he said calmly. "But we are not slaves to dollars. Let the people see the truth, and they will decide if freedom is worth the price." Meanwhile, in Washington, news of the leak reached Trump's inner circle before dawn. A junior aide burst into Trump's Mar-a-Lago office waving a tablet. "Sir, it's trending on every platform, #number Trump betrayed Africa. They're calling it your colonial confession." Trump snatched the tablet, his face turning crimson as he watched his own words echo back at him, ripped apart by commentators in Africa, Europe, even inside the U.S. Senate. "Who the hell does this kid think he is?" Trump bellowed, hurling the device across the room. Glass shattered against the marble floor. Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré stood before a live camera at dawn, eyes clear, voice steady. "To every African watching," he declared, "this recording proves what many have suspected for years. Our resources, our futures, traded behind closed doors for foreign gain. Today, we say no more." Within an hour, protests erupted in Burkina Faso's streets, but not against Traoré. They chanted his name. They burned photos of Trump alongside the logos of foreign mining companies. The war for Africa's dignity had a new front, and the whole world was watching. While African capitals buzzed with chants for freedom, and global news outlets replayed Traoré's broadcast on a loop, the real storm brewed behind closed doors in Washington. Inside the Oval Office, the atmosphere was toxic. Trump's advisors crowded around a massive wooden table, arguing so fiercely that staff outside could hear every word. "This is catastrophic," barked Jared, his top strategist. "Mr. President, half of Africa just turned you into a symbol of exploitation. The Senate is asking questions about your offshore deals with those mining giants." Trump slammed his fist on the table so hard a glass of water tipped over. "I built deals that made America rich. Those African countries owed us. And now this. This child from Burkina Faso thinks he's going to embarrass me in front of the world?" Across the ocean in Burkina Faso, Traoré sat in his modest presidential office, the same size as a small city mayor's suite in the West. He wasn't surrounded by gold drapes or a wall of flunkies. Just a battered wooden desk, a map of Africa pinned behind him, and 3 trusted allies standing by. One of them, Maurice Sankara, the old intelligence chief turned loyal advisor, leaned in whispering, "Mr. President, we intercepted chatter. Trump's team is desperate to contain this. They're reaching out to regional leaders to isolate you politically." Traoré smirked faintly. "Let them try. Every African watching knows the truth now. Every child in a village understands who sells their gold and oil for crumbs." Outside the palace gates, the streets pulsed with energy. Students painted murals of Traoré confronting a red-faced caricature of Trump. In the markets, people discussed global politics between buying yams and tomatoes. Even the elders nodded, muttering, "This one does not kneel." Back in D.C., the plan to salvage Trump's image was grim. His advisors suggested bribery, sanctions, or worse, covert funding for Traoré's rivals. But Trump, red-eyed and furious, interrupted. "No, I want a direct message. Get me on a call with him. He wants to play hero. I'll remind him who controls the money." Unaware, Traoré finished reading a letter from a child in a remote village. It said, "Thank you for making them hear our voice." The battle lines were clear. The next move would not be fought in boardrooms, but between 2 men who refused to back down. The secure line buzzed late at night in Ouagadougou. Traoré, in his crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, was reviewing papers when an aide burst in, breathless. "Mr. President, the White House is calling. President Trump himself." For a heartbeat, the room froze. Sankara, standing by the window, whispered, "Be careful. He'll try to rattle you. He's a master of chaos." Traoré nodded calmly and picked up the encrypted phone. Thousands of miles away, in a golden-lit West Wing office, Trump leaned forward, flanked by 2 grim-looking advisors, eyes locked on a speaker. "Traoré," Trump drawled, his voice dripping with faux warmth. "Or should I say, Mr. Hero of Africa, congratulations on your little TV show." Traoré leaned back, his eyes on the flickering desk lamp. "Mr. President, to what do I owe this honor? Have you called to apologize for stealing our gold and mocking our people?" Trump's fist clenched out of camera view. He forced a laugh. "You misunderstand. I made Africa rich. American companies built your roads, your power plants, and now you humiliate me on live TV? Bad move, kid." Outside the window, the hum of the city at midnight was steady. In the quiet, Sankara scribbled notes, listening to every word. Traoré's tone never wavered. "Your companies took 90% of the profit. Our villages remained in the dark. So now our people are reclaiming what is ours. You are free to watch." Trump's voice dropped an octave, cold, menacing. "Listen to me, boy. I can make your country suffer in ways you can't imagine. Sanctions, blockades, frozen assets. I have friends in Europe. One word, and you're begging on your knees." The threat lingered like poison in the air. Traoré's reply cut through the tension. "Then do it. Show every African how far you'll go to keep us poor. Because once you do, every child will see who the real enemy is." In Washington, Trump slammed the phone down, red-faced. In Burkina Faso, Traoré calmly placed the receiver back and looked at Sankara. "Prepare the next speech. The world deserves to know what was just threatened tonight." And across the continent, the spark turned into a wildfire. The hunter had tried to frighten his prey, but discovered it was a lion all along. 3 days later, the first wave hit. Overnight, Burkina Faso's bank accounts abroad were frozen. International aid convoys stalled at borders. Fuel prices doubled. Western news outlets broadcast urgent reports. Burkina Faso's economy in free fall after Traoré's reckless defiance. Inside the presidential war room, Traoré, Sankara, and a handful of loyal ministers gathered around a map lit by a single desk lamp. The atmosphere was tense but electric, like a storm waiting to break. Sankara tapped the map with his pen. "They're cutting us off from fuel imports through the coast. Our reserves last 3 weeks, maybe less." Traoré studied the lines of roads and pipelines. "Then we break the blockade from within. Double local production, ration exports, get word to our farmers, this fight is for our survival." The economy minister, sweating despite the cool air, stammered, "But sir, without international loans, salaries, supplies, how will we—" Traoré cut him off with a rare flash of anger. "If we starve waiting for foreign pity, we die anyway. If we resist, maybe we survive, maybe we win. I will not beg Trump for scraps." At that moment, Sankara's phone buzzed. He read the message, eyes narrowing. "Mr. President, there's more. American advisors have been seen in the Capitol. They're not just planning sanctions. They're stirring opposition inside Parliament. Bribing old rivals, they want a coup." A heavy silence settled. Outside, distant protests had begun, some genuine, some suspiciously well-funded. Placards read, "Why must we suffer for pride?" and "Better poor than hungry." Traoré stood, voice steady but steel-edged. "Then they will see. This time, Africa will not kneel. If they want to break our back with hunger and betrayal, they will have to face our people first." He locked eyes with Sankara. "Find me the proof. Names, accounts. We expose every dirty dollar. And when the truth burns bright enough, no mercenary, no sanction, no president thousands of miles away will kill this revolution." And so, as the blockade tightened, a secret counterattack began. Not with guns, but with leaks, hidden tapes, and a resolve forged in centuries of chains now broken. The first tape dropped on a stormy Friday night, leaked anonymously to local journalists and quickly picked up by foreign outlets. A scratchy audio file, but the voices were unmistakable. An American envoy, a Burkinabe opposition leader, and a plan to restore order if Traoré wouldn't back down. It hit like an earthquake. By dawn, crowds had gathered outside Parliament, waving handwritten signs, "No more puppets. Africa decides for Africa." Opposition MPs, caught on tape negotiating secret payments, tried to flee the city, but citizens blocked airport roads and hotel exits. No escape, no denials. Inside the palace, Traoré listened to the chaos with a grim satisfaction. Sankara stood by his side, phone buzzing with updates. "Mr. President, the recordings are spreading like wildfire. Even international press can't ignore it now. The White House is denying everything, but Trump's silence speaks louder." Traoré didn't smile. His eyes stayed on the window, rain trickling down like veins across the glass. "They always underestimate us, Sankara. They think our people are too hungry, too divided, too desperate to resist. But they forget. Hunger teaches a man what chains feel like. And once he feels freedom, he won't trade it for rice and crumbs." A knock at the door. The Minister of Defense entered, breathless. "Sir, we have detained the main conspirators. Some local officers were involved. They confessed under questioning. The money trail leads straight to a shell company in Delaware." Sankara snorted. "Delaware, classic American hiding place." Traoré turned, voice cold as iron. "Good. We will show the world their democracy comes with receipts." Outside in the pounding rain, students, farmers, and old revolutionaries chanted a single word: dignity. Louder than the storm, louder than fear. And inside the palace, Traoré knew this battle was far from over. But now the battlefield was clear. truth against treachery, pride against profit. As the tapes spread worldwide, Western news anchors stammered through emergency segments. Footage showed American diplomats cornered by angry protesters at embassies from Ouagadougou to Nairobi. Editorials asked, "Has Washington lost Africa for good?" Inside the presidential palace, Traoré met his cabinet in a tense midnight session. Maps and documents littered the big mahogany table. Sankara, grizzled but alert, pointed to highlighted trade routes. "Mr. President, the economic retaliation has begun. Washington froze aid accounts. European investors are pulling out. They want to break our backbone before we even stand tall." Traoré leaned forward, tapping the table with his finger. "Then we don't bend. We pivot. Secure more rice production, double the mining royalties, cut wasteful imports. If they want a siege, they'll get one. But we'll be ready." He paused, looking around at weary but determined faces. "Gentlemen, we don't just survive this. We define a new model. No more middlemen. No more hush money behind closed doors. If they betray us, we expose them. If they threaten us, we show unity." Suddenly, his phone vibrated. A text from an African president he hadn't heard from in months. "I stand with you. Let's talk tomorrow." Sankara saw it too and gave a rare half-smile. "They thought they'd isolate us, but they're welding us together instead." Outside, the city buzzed all night. Volunteers guarded radio stations and power plants. Youth groups patrolled food warehouses to prevent panic hoarding. And on social media, a hashtag blazed in every local dialect. #Africa won't bow. 3 simple words carrying the weight of centuries. Traoré exhaled slowly, feeling the storm strengthen his resolve. Tomorrow would not be easy, but tomorrow would belong to those who refused to sell their future. By dawn, a quiet revolution rippled across African capitals. Ministers from Mali, Niger, and Chad dialed Traoré's secure line one after another, their voices hushed but urgent. "We heard what Trump did," said Mali's defense chief. "We want to coordinate food reserves and border security. If they cut us off, we stand together." Traoré scribbled notes, exhaustion flickering behind his steady eyes. "Good. No more isolated resistance. This time, we move as one." Meanwhile, Sankara met with a secretive team of economic strategists in a dusty conference room deep beneath the presidential palace. Charts covered the walls, new trade routes bypassing European ports, deals with Asia on fairer terms, local factories to refine gold and uranium inside Burkina Faso instead of shipping raw wealth abroad. He growled at a young analyst fumbling slides. "No more theory. Draft contracts by tomorrow. We negotiate as owners, not beggars." Back upstairs, Traoré prepared for a global broadcast. The speech had to be perfect, fierce enough to rally citizens, calm enough to reassure jittery markets. A young aide, barely 20, handed him a fresh shirt. "Mr. President, people are saying you made Trump look like a clown." Traoré chuckled softly. "I didn't make him anything. He revealed himself. I just refused to bow." Outside, crowds gathered near giant screens erected in city squares. Old farmers, street vendors, students, mothers, all waiting to hear what came next. Traoré glanced at Sankara by the doorway, the old spymaster now his fiercest defender. "Ready?" Sankara nodded. "Let's show them what an unbought Africa looks like." And as cameras rolled live, a continent braced to hear its leader promise a dawn no foreign betrayal could snuff out. The cameras blinked red. Live. Across Africa, millions leaned closer to radios, phones, and flickering TV sets. From refugee camps to luxury penthouses in Abidjan, every eye fixed on one man's face. Ibrahim Traoré, unflinching, stood behind a simple wooden podium. No flags, no gold drapes, just the Burkina sun behind him through an open window. "My brothers and sisters of Africa," he began, voice calm but carrying a sharp edge, "many of you woke up to rumors that a great foreign leader betrayed his promises to us, that he used his wealth, his media, and his spies to buy our obedience. He paused, letting the words sting. Well, I confirm it, and I tell you, never again. A roar erupted in Ouagadougou's main square. Young men pounded drums, children waved flags, but Traoré raised a hand for silence. No more begging for handouts that chain our people. No more deals that send our gold to distant vaults while our schools crumble. And no more foreign presidents deciding who eats and who starves in Africa. In the broadcast room, Sankara whispered to an aide, "He's not speaking to Burkina Faso, he's speaking to the continent." Traoré leaned closer to the camera. His tone shifted from fire to promise. "We will build our own reserves, refine our own resources, and feed our own children first. To those who threaten us with sanctions or bribes, you are welcome to watch. You will never again own Africa's tomorrow." Somewhere in Washington, Trump, surrounded by advisors, glared at a muted TV, red-faced, jabbing a finger at the screen. But his threats now sounded hollow, even in his own war room. Across the continent, people didn't just watch a speech. They saw a new blueprint for defiance, and a leader who dared to say no more. The speech ended, but for Traoré and Sankara, the real work was just beginning. That same night, in a hidden wing of the presidential compound, they met with trusted generals and community leaders under flickering bulbs. Maps covered the table, supply lines, new trade corridors, safe routes for trucks carrying homegrown rice, oil, and gold. "First, we cut the middlemen," Sankara rasped, tapping a pen on the map. "Second, we protect every convoy, mercenaries or not." Traoré nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "And third, no one signs a contract with foreign firms unless it leaves wealth here." One elder, his beard white as salt, leaned forward. "And if they come for you again, my son?" Traoré's eyes were steady. "Then they come for every village chief, every farmer, every mother with a hungry child. I am not the shield, I am the signal." Outside, bonfires crackled as crowds sang freedom songs under the moonlight. In distant capitals, Paris, Washington, even Beijing, analysts scrambled to rewrite reports. Africa might finally be ungovernable by bribes. Near dawn, Sankara and Traoré stepped out to the palace balcony. Below, the people's chants echoed, "No more chains, no more lies." Sankara, the old fox, chuckled dryly. "I still remember the day you overthrew your first commander. You were reckless then." Traoré smiled, eyes on the horizon where the sun threatened to rise. "I'm still reckless, but now the people stand with me." He turned to Sankara, voice low but unyielding. "Tell them Africa does not kneel, not to Trump, not to anyone." In that quiet moment, 2 generations of warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, guardians of a fragile dream, an Africa feeding itself, ruling itself, unbought, unbroken. Tonight you've witnessed not just the story of betrayal and revenge, but the fire that burns inside a leader who refuses to be bought, silenced, or controlled. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just stand against Trump. He stood for every African child who dreams of a tomorrow free from foreign greed and broken promises. And Maurice Sankara proved that even old enemies can become the steel that forges a nation's backbone when truth calls them together. This is more than a headline. This is a warning to every power that still thinks Africa is for sale. From this soil rises a new kind of leadership, reckless, brave, stubborn enough to risk it all so that no farmer, no mother, no village is ever abandoned again. Remember their story. Share their fire. Because the next battle for Africa's soul might not be fought in palaces or parliaments, but in the hearts of people like you, who choose courage over comfort and truth over fear. Thank you for watching. This is the Untold State, where we bring you the stories they wish you'd never hear. Stay brave, stay awake, and stay untold.